And welcome back. Today's subject is Mittens. You may recall during my initial Septemberk face drawing sessions, I drew the face of a person called Becki. This is their cat. Full body cat. Got to get the whole thing in there. I don't know that much about the structure of a cat. I mean, this looks fairly soft. I mean, you know, if I was to try and draw this into a stick person, I guess I would do kind of that, and I don't know, that would be the head there. Actually, that's a weird like head shape if you're trying to get the outside of it. That's not a skull. That's mostly gonna be fur, isn't it? I think the actual head is kind of there, and the rest of that is all just fur. And then I guess from there you've got a spinal column which comes up the centre to there, which makes that a kind of shoulder area. And then there's going to be hips, like this paw and that paw go to some kind of mythological hips. This is going to be difficult to construct is what I'm saying. But I think the one bit that I can get right is that is the head there inside that big fluffy bit. And there seems to be a kind of a sort of stomach area there, maybe as a sort of pure circle. And then from here we can do a kind of a neck from the back of the head round to the back of there. And then if that's straight in line, that goes to there. So, as you know, the mystery of how to do this is partially about doing furries, because that's kind of one of my aims in this is to work towards doing furry art. And I think it's fair to say that as attempting to draw cartoon characters, like you're looking at a sort of squash and stretch tube with a head at one end, how to get these legs, they kind of have this sort of gam here and then down to that, and there's a similar one kind of below, but it just disappears into the fur. It's hard to tell where the edge of this fur is. Does that all go all the way up there, or does it kind of curl around to there? So I can draw the lines I want on this, but if it doesn't help me reconstruct it on the actual blank canvas, it's no help at all. So that definitely comes up there. That's a stomach line. In fact, this line is illusory. Oop. Okay, let's run this back, because what I've realised now that I've been doing is drawing not on the image itself, so not on an overlay, which I was meant to be doing, but on the image itself. So the head there is part 1. The butt here is part 2. And we have this kind of stomach that goes in there. That is stomach there. So if we bring that around, that's kind of the second circular, and that comes down to there. And then we can kind of imagine a sort of, can we see where that goes? No, that's essentially a straight line to there, but it doesn't. See, this paw comes in here and fills in. So we never actually see where that goes, because this is all paw. All of that there is paw shape. And all of this here is paw shape. I picked an annoying first full cat body, didn't I? And of course we've got the tail here. So first things first, I think that if we can get the correct ratio between head and butt, similar to how we did with the bird. Once again, it seems to be exactly twice as wide. This is now the Stacy law of animal butt to head ratio. Twice as big. Animals have fat asses, just like people. Well, like this people anyway. Why can't I pick that colour? There we go. That's so weird that I can't pick that black from the colour selector. Right. So first things first, we have a big butt. You know, I need a slightly bigger brush for this. We have big butt, and then we have, what's the distance between those two? This entire cat is essentially 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 heads wide. So if we do that to there, I've already drawn this too big then, because that butt will not fit on this. A cat with a butt that size will not fit on this page. Let's lower our expectations for the size of this. In fact, no, we should be able to construct this thing without having to worry about the size of the head. So if I call that like the main arc and then work everything else out from that. So if we have an arc like this, this is now our cat. And we have to split this into 5 equal parts. Ish. So we can now, oh God, have butt here and head here. And we've essentially just created the, it's probably a bit too big, nope. There. Dog's back again. Hello, girlie. Yeah, I know, I'm drawing a cat now. That's pathetic, isn't it? I could have drawn an amazing dog, and instead I drew a cat. So we know that this cat has a kind of blobby head shape like that. Yeah, this gam kind of comes down, and we know that comes in like so down to the sort of the actual leggy part, which is then like that. Yeah, that's essentially what it's like. It's meant to be zoomed into the thing. Okay, that is filled into the thing. I can scroll it down a little bit, I suppose. So again, it's another halving sequence there. In case you couldn't tell what I was doing there, if you take essentially the radius of this to the root of that, that is half of that, essentially. And if you take the radius of that to that, that is half of that to there. So we've got kind of the right shape for those. So I'm going to be fairly happy with that, actually, I think. And then we have higher up into the chest a sort of second leg coming in. Now, according to this, that leg peeks out from behind there. So it's sort of, come on, bring it back. Oh, what the hell? Somehow I've ended up on the wrong tool. This sort of comes down to here, and then that comes out from there, which gives us sort of a direction for where these things go. Have I run out of space again? I've run out of space again. Yeah, you can kind of see the back of that leg part there, but this is, it doesn't get any wider. That's all leg part, and the angle of this is wrong. It should come this way. Right, there we go. So this comes down to here. And just above that we have this coming down at the same angle essentially. I want to get this sort of thickness right, and then the paw on the end. Can I actually just sort of how come it's the wrong layer I'm moving? There we go. There we go. Just going to move that up. That's a good point actually. I can move this all the way up there because it's not like it's being used for anything, or that top bit of the canvas. I knew I'd get myself enough room. There we go. Layer to image size. There. And now it fits. Everything's good. So I'm happy with that for now. The tail comes kind of down here. It's actually just, no, that's all wrong. It just comes down here and you see the tip of it there. That's the tail. Right. Meanwhile, this line here is actually part of a paw. So there's a bit of fluffy belly here. There's this kind of, there's actually a curve to that knee. You can't quite see it on the, that comes into there and is no, actually that does come down to there like that. I feel like maybe these paws aren't long enough, but we'll figure it out. This comes in here and it's like straight in there with a paw. That then comes back out to here and up to there. That is not a bad reconstruction of that paw, just in terms of the rough bits of it. And then over here there's sort of a shoulder of this coming up. Now this paw kind of, if you look at this paw lines up with the top of that, and the edge of that kind of almost lines up with the, so if we just vaguely imagine that, and we know that if we have the paw coming up here, that goes up there and then down here. Yeah. That goes up there, then we know that that is like so. And that is actually way higher up the body. That paw is a lot more foreshortened than you would think, because it kind of ends there. Let's go back a little bit. It's too many scruff lines. Because that paw kind of aligns in with that, sort of halfway over it. So yeah, almost directly above there, this paw is here, and that comes up and over to there-ish. Right. Okay. Just going to check this is actually recording. Yep, I'm recording. Okay. Let's take another look at the head. So, if we get a centre line up the head like that, you can sort of see where the nose is almost exactly halfway down it. If we sort of blob the head out to that part. So that is blobbed out to there. There's a line like that which gives us the centre line for where the nose is. I don't want to do this with too many scratch lines. So I've got a copy of the image up behind here that you can't see once again. So that's kind of that, and the centre of the head is there, which gives us a nose that kind of comes in like that. That then goes down. That's to there. And then this literally comes out like so. You can actually see kind of where the except just looking at it here, if I hide that briefly, let's just go down a size and pick a better colour. If this eye is here, let's actually go up a couple of sizes. There we go. If that's the eye there and that's the eye there, this is directly above the centre line, whereas this one ends a little way off. So if that's the centre of the head, then this muzzle here is kind of prodded outwards. We need to capture that. We need to capture the fact that we need to construct it. That's what I mean. So if we have our centre line like this, then we have a nose part here which kind of goes back to there, which lines up to that, because that is a 3D surface there. That is foreshortened. Ha! We did it. So, coming back here, we know that that's the top of that nose. We also know that we have a lengthened thing here because that's meant to be. That's a 3D plane there. So this eye here comes to this one, but this eye here comes to this one. Yeah, that's eye the first, and this here is eye the second. Then we have a kind of a chin line there. This actually, it's got a kind of almost a sort of stripe that goes all the way over to there. I don't know if I want to capture that or not. But then we have obviously lines coming in the top of the head here. And then the ear, if we sort of imagine the ear coming all the way out from where the head itself is, the ears kind of come out from here. So that one comes straight out, and that one's sort of in there, and this one comes out sort of like that. The difference being that where this one connects to the head, it's entirely at the front, like all you see is front of ear, whereas this one, this part here is like back of ear. That's tilted to the side. That's got a sort of shape to it. It's probably a little more pointed than we've given it credit for there. Have I drawn that bigger? Yeah, that ear is actually a little bit bigger than that one, so let's actually do that one a little bit smaller to account for it. That's more like it. There we go. This is basically the shape of our cat. This what was I doing a minute ago? Oh yeah, Why can't I reduce my brush size? Interesting, my one space brush size reduce has been taken off the express keys. That is worth noting. Right. I was about to note something, which is the fact that there is actually a vague hint of back leg there. And there's this sort of fluffy bit of belly here. All of this is fluffy, but like this whole bit here is fluffy belly. There are stripes that kind of come around to here. There's a few stripy bits kind of on this part of the leg, and a few on this leg as well. I don't know how well I'm going to be able to capture all these stripes. There are definite stripes on the tail, so the tail has some very strong stripes on it, all the way down to this sort of dark end to the tail. I've perhaps drawn those a little bit too close together, because it only has sort of the root one there, where it sort of disappears into the butt. The second one, and then this one turns entirely into the dark part of the tip. Then we have a dark stripe here, similar stripes coming along this part, some little ones on top of that paw. And there's a claw like there. So there's only two claw bits there. There's a claw part there. And then the head does have a kind of under chin looking thing, which is drawn with little feathers there and there. Right then. So this is our sketch cat. Oh, I've gone and done it again. I've drawn half of my... Okay, that's okay, we can deal with this, merge that layer down, add a white layer on the bottom, and then reduce the opacity of that. Okay, this here is our scratch cat. What we're about to draw is the actual cat. Where are we going to begin this from? I'm going to begin this from the head. So the shape of the head is this sort of nice smooth line, like so. Actually, thinking about it, I've missed a thing here, because it does actually come out to there, and there's that line. So if I just go quickly back to my scratch layer, this does actually go in a bit here, and that line lines up with it. Oops. So when I'm actually drawing this head, it's like that. I'm going to ask it to smooth that stroke and see if it helps. It did not. I need a bigger pen. It's more like it. So that's the head of the cat. Next, let's fill in some details. We've got pair of eyes. Now this eye sort of has that kind of shape to it. Right, now I've had trouble with cat noses before. What I learned is that it's got this sort of almost like a V shape to it. And you can actually get a fair amount of nostril there. You know what? Let's stop making this difficult for ourselves. Let's actually zoom in. You know, we have all this technology at our disposal. We don't need to rely upon fine motor control. So this comes around to here, and there is a bit of nostril there. This one comes around to here, and there is a fair amount of nostril here. Yeah. Maybe not quite that much. That almost has a sort of a straight line there, as if that's the actual shape of it. Which for now I'm gonna say it is. Because we don't want to spend too long on the nose. Whoops. There we go. Zoom back out. Let's work on these paws a little bit. So we have that sort of shape there. Yeah, that's kind of about it, actually. Now that seems pretty weird, but and this one has a similar sort of thing going on. It comes right down into an actual corner, at which point there's like a sort of pad, and then we have I see now the pad's kind of there. No, the pad's sort of there-ish. And then underneath that we have the sort of front part of that claw. There. There we go. This thing's still smoothing out my strokes, that's not helping. Yeah, so what these actually have on them is a sort of line where the claw part would come out of the actual comes up, has an angle there, comes to there, and then that's practically a straight line to that. It is basically that. Yes, there we go. I knew I'd get it right eventually. You can't actually make out the claw section on these, but it's sort of, it darkens just the tips of the... Yeah. Right. So you can't actually see this line here on the actual image. What you get is kind of this section of paw. Let's go quickly back to this layer here, because I didn't spend too much time on these back paws. These kind of have the same three-toe thing going on. Whereas that comes out there. Yeah, and then this one has a similar... Oh no, that one's rotated. So this paw is actually, you see more of the pads of it. So there's actually like a full-on toe bean. Like that. That comes out sort of there-ish. Followed by a second one, which similar kind of alignment. Yeah, it's almost like we have the edge of the paw there, and then we have the beans underneath. Right. So if we look down here, oh god. Just quickly come back in this colour. You have a sort of... There we go. You have this part of the toe here. This part here. And then a bean there, and then a big bean there. With a little bit there. And then just a little hint of a toe there. So that's more of the underside of the foot. So what we've got going on here, I'm going to undo a lot of the previous moves from this to get this right. What we've got going on here is the same arrangement with that, but we have an additional layer essentially on top. And then this one was literally just a tiny bit there. So coming back into here, the foot has a kind of if we draw the beans in first, There's probably an actual name for these parts of a cat's paw. I just don't know what it is. Why do I get the feeling that I'm drawing in a thinner line than I was earlier? It's more like it. So we have that one there, a much larger one there. That one goes to there. Now one thing that we did sort of discover is that you can kind of see a bit of the underside of the foot there as well. Do cats' feet have an underside? I suppose they do. They must do. Now, here's a mistake that I made there, is that that essentially becomes the top edge of the foot. That comes up there. Like that. And there is an extra little tiny bit of toe there. But it's sort of... Right. That bit of toe comes up there and kind of becomes the outer edge of the foot. That comes to there. This comes out of here and becomes the outer edge of the foot here. There we go. I mean, if that's what's on the page, then that's what we've got, but it looks wrong. Maybe once it's coloured it'll look better. And then we have this and a sort of fluffy section of belly there. And this one sort of comes down from here. It's like that. That looks wrong, but it's right. And then we have the fluffy part of this tail. Kind of comes down to here. All the way up there. And around and over the back. Let's do that again. Nope. Gotta stop second guessing myself at that curve. If I draw it smooth, it will look smooth, regardless of whether or not it actually kind of connects. So this part here I can at least connect up with that bit a little better, because actually, look at this. Didn't notice this before. This tail actually goes outside of that paw. The tail ends here and comes all the way up there. That is the outer body of our cat. Yeah. That's correct. Ish. That should... So what we have here is a kind of... The beginning of the dark section of the tail is there. And then we have a stripe here. Now we have a... Actually, let's not do that on this layer. Let's not do any of that on this layer. Let's keep this layer for actual outliney parts. The last part of this is the cat's ears, which are actually, oh no, because look at this. This is quite a strong outward ear. This one is a little round one, but that one's quite a strong outward one. And this one, I've not drawn it anything like long enough. Let's get back onto here. This should come out further. Come out at least to there. So if we now, it's more like it, but it does kind of sort of kinks in a bit there. There we go. Meanwhile, Mittens' other ear goes in like that. You see, theoretically, I don't think we need that part as much. In fact, I question whether we need any of that. Don't shoot me down just yet. Don't pre-guess this. I think that should be done with fuzzier lines. I don't think that we need as much as we have there. I think a lot of this can be done in shading, which means before I get ahead of myself, let's move up a layer. Okay, we are going to need a little bit more structure just while we do this part. So there is a kind of a strong crease there on the neck, just for that bit of chin. Now, the shade on the head, if we have our centre line here, there's some kind of directly shaded parts there, culminating in a sort of triangular pattern. We have kind of just a hint of a nose there. And there are lines of the cheek there. And a matching one, but greatly foreshortened here, as well as a sort of under chin strap that connects up where that is. And also here-ish. So One thing that we learned is that if we put a little bit of cross hatching into these, they tend to look a little bit more fur-like. There's one coming up here. But these stripes go all the way up where this neck area is. There's some big belly stripes that sort of go here-ish, and there's a big one here. Let's get in the main areas of it first. Now, here's the thing, that one. Oh, the dog's back. If you recall yesterday, my dog got a little bit antsy at one point, and I think it's getting around to that kind of time again. I think she might need to go out. I think she can tell when I'm hatching. She can hear this little tap, 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 tap sound, and she doesn't like it. And that's why she comes down for this part. I've got a few stripes here, just disappearing behind this paw. And there are a few vaguish stripes on here. No, don't nudge my arm, dog. That's the one thing I can't have. And this whole section here, this is all dark furred. Oh, everything is conspiring to take me away from this piece of art tonight. Everything. Let's just check and see what that was. Just a little thumbs up so that she knows I've read it. There's a little bit of dark stripe here and a wider one here. Let's get these hatched in. there are lots of little ones all the way down here. It sort of all graze together a little bit in many ways. And there's definitely a kind of a darker edge to this top side, which I'm going to try and capture in fur lines. You know, that's kind of not even as there as it looks in the original image. I'm almost tempted to take some of this out. This is actually an area of shadow that I'm doing now. Same thing goes for this. There's an area of shadow here. See, this whole area here is kind of a mess. I feel like the whole thing needs darkening just to pull it together, you know, just to So there are matching stripes to go with those there, which we should probably try and get a little bit of. Meanwhile, these stripes kind of come off and go merge together into a big blob there. hate to say it, but we may not save this one. I may have just done too many lines. Hello! Right. I'm going to change my tactic for a little while, just for what's remaining here, because we have kind of a darker area here on each of these toes. Actually, just on that one, really. Just this sort of dark part here. But the actual beans themselves also have kind of a dark part, so I'm going to take my dynamics off, and it's this time again, it's stipple time. See, this has a kind of a sort of a light section to the paw and a sort of a dark section to the paw, which I'm going to try to and the same thing's happening here. You know, I was talking to someone the other day, and they were saying that I should do art lessons. Like I could teach anyone anything. Like, the only thing that I think I would have even vaguely, like even a vague idea of how to teach someone was persistence. Because I think it's the only thing I've really got going for me. Oh, hang on. I know you're thinking, what are you doing? What are you doing? I'm doing this. I'm actually just defining a shape here. A shape which is present on the original. Yeah. Turn the dynamics back on. Just want to get a bit more under here. Just a bit more under there. Just some. Because it kind of has just a fuzziness at the edges that I want to at least try and capture a little of. There's a few places where the fur sort of fuzzes out a little. Back on the wrong layer again. Yeah, so there is a kind of a dark inroads to this ear. Yeah. Okay. Anything else missing? I think this is the best I'm gonna get. I've not got any whiskers in yet. Let's just finish off the mouth parts with some actual whiskers, since this cat definitely has them. There's a kind of a darker area over the nose, which continues under the eyes. Joins up to those. That's all wrong, because there's not meant to be a straight line, it's not meant to be that kind of line, it should be like this. Except that's all wrong. Maybe it's... Yeah. And then finally, we have these. Let's get some whiskers in here. I've done all these whiskers, they're all curling upwards. None of these whiskers curl upwards, they all curl downwards. They all curl like that. And these ones, closer together though they are, they all have kind of that curve to them, but it's more kind of like that. There we go. I think I'm going to have to stop now before I start making even more mistakes. No, actually, wait. There's a few stripes on the back of the paws. What was that? The fur here is going along that line, so these should really go that way. Yeah. I feel like I'm learning things here, but I'm learning things that I can no longer apply to this image. I'm going to have to do another cat in the future, annoyingly, in order to get the benefit of these lessons. What I'm learning is, you know, I'm gonna try and do my thing and be an art teacher. Let's do some art teaching. Okay, so here's a new picture. Say you've got a cat with a stripe. Here's a perfectly spherical cat. Say this cat has a stripe which goes like that. Now the fur, drawing a stripe like that is a mistake, because the fur is not going that way. The fur is going that way. So what you actually want to do is make that like the pencil mark stripe. So if I just do a vague outline there, that's my pencil mark. The fur has to come this way, and what you want to do is fill the stripe in like that. And sort of try to stick more to the actual sort of lines of the sphere, which I was doing when I did the directionality. So you want curves that go like that and curves that go like that, and I suppose in the middle they go straight in. And so by doing that, you end up with a stripe that looks like it's part of the fur. You have some of them start within it, some of them start outside of it. But either way, you end up with what is essentially a furry stripe. Now, the reason it worked so well when I did it this way initially is because if you start with a stripe like that and start to add hatches, eventually what you end up with is something that looks like if you'd done a whole bunch of stripes here. So if you did enough stripes that centre section became completely dense. And this is why Garfield has stripes that look like that, because that is a shorthand. If you look at a picture of Garfield, Garfield has stripes that are essentially like 3 horizontal lines, because that's the direction of the stripe, that's the direction of the fur. It's a shorthand. And Garfield's head would be there. So if that's the shorthand for the Garfield type stripes, it makes a lot of sense actually, because the way that I do stippling, let's dynamics off for a second. If I had something spherical that I wanted to stipple with that being entirely in shadow, the first thing that I would do is fill that entirely into shadow. And then my first line of stippling, if that was completely dark, my first line of stippling would be dots along this edge so that you couldn't necessarily see where the hard edge was. And then I would fill in from there. And that is how I figure out where light goes. Just by darkening and darkening and darkening until it sort of has a nice smooth gradient. So we do the same thing with a furry object. If we have say a sphere that we want to be furry, we know that that part is entirely in darkness, so we can fill that part entirely into darkness. But again, it's a furry object, so we know that the lighting has to follow the lines of the fur. So the fur is coming this way around the sphere. So the first thing you have to do, dynamics back on now I think. The first thing you do is add fur lines following the curvature of the object until such point that you can no longer see where that hard edge is. And you can take some of them a bit further out just to sort of gradiate it. And what you end up with, I've picked a really awkward angle because I'd have to draw now. If I draw so the curves are going that way, it'd be a lot easier, because that is the hardest way to draw curves for me at this angle. What this now means, however, is that if I can just get a few more lines in there just to hide where that hard edge is, what I now have is a furry object that I can add more furry lines to. And it's shaded and it's got a sort of fur texture to it without any hard edges. And that's what I should have been doing with these stripes. What I've actually done is hashed them up. And because I don't want them to be fully dark stripes, I can't just fill the middle in undo the area around them like that, because then you've got a fully dark part, and I don't want a fully dark part. With some of them I obviously do, but with a lot of these, what I actually want is for the stripe to be sort of greyed out a little bit, and I've made a mistake. So that's where I'm going to leave this for now. I've made a lot of bad value judgments, value meaning the brightness of the light, not necessarily like moral values or anything, but I think that I know where I've gone wrong, and I can move forward knowing that, and I'm going to call that finished. Finished.